For the infected, we shall endeavor towards achieving universal access to HIV comprehensive treatment, care and support, and recognizing the fundamental human rights.
The UNAIDS representative Lamin Kamara told the gathering that the year 2011 has been a year of achievements of collective actions in spite of the economic downturn that has stretched the AIDS response to its limits.
Treatment and prevention has ended because treatment is now prevention. The divide between health and AIDS has narrowed as AIDS comes out of isolation and into integrated and holistic health services. The AIDS response has paved the path for a people-centered health delivery system, one that values and restores the respect and dignity of every individual. The road before us is clear, and we can accelerate.
Their voices are still the same for the people living with the virus. Stigma and discrimination is becoming a frequent call for the people living with HIV. Usman Dabo and Ajibintu Diouf of Gamnas says government is doing everything to help them get good living with the provision of the antiretroviral drugs, but wants society to do more in halting the stigmatizing people infected with the virus. The Gambia government is continuing to lead the national response against HIV and AIDS in a comprehensive multi-sectoral response.
The government of the Gambia is acting on her promise at the 2006 United Nations high-level meeting on HIV and AIDS.
World leaders are standing up to say that an AIDS-free generation is possible and that no child should be born with HIV, and preventive measures to be increased to stop mothers dying from the disease. For GRTS News, I am Debusu.
You can also follow that story and other GRTS programs live on our website at www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor GRTS Radio Live. We now take our first break. We'll be right back.
Play your favorite song to your callers with the AfriCell Fun Ring service.
To activate the Fun Ring service on your AfriCell line, type FUN and send it by SMS to 139 and have a different fun ring anytime you want.
To set this song as your fun ring, type SET followed by 11261 and send it by SMS to 139.
The code for this song is 11961.
11017.
11161.
11171.
And don't forget, you can always use the Fun Ring search engine to find your favorite Fun Ring code by typing the name of the song or the performer and send it by SMS to 138.
Keep your callers entertained by playing your favorite music on your AfriCell line.
Welcome back. There is an air of anxiety among Iraqi courts regarding the withdrawal of US troops from the country. A group in northern Iraq is not happy about this development. It is believed just 150 of the 11,000 US troops still stationed in Iraq will remain at the end of the month. The courts, it could be recalled, were targeted by the brutal regime of Saddam Hussein more than 20 years ago, and our Demon reports they are still apprehensive.
Only a faint outline survived the decades and desert winds.
You were born here?
On the other side. This was 43-year-old Jamil Muhammad's childhood home.
Oh, Hammam Mambu.
This was our bathroom.
Right there.
Right. These were all rooms of our house. So every small hill you see was a house here.
There were once 40 farmhouses here, a village called Karach in the district of Mahmud. Along with countless other Kurdish villages, it was razed by Saddam Hussein's bulldozers in the late 80s, in a ruthless operation against the Kurds in northern Iraq. It was part of Saddam's Arabization campaign, aimed at displacing local Kurds and replacing them with Arabs, especially around the oil-rich cities like Kirkuk. Who should control these areas is now disputed. A stripe of territory between the semi-autonomous region of Kurdistan and the rest of Iraq. A territory with a mix of Kurds and Arabs. And with the U.S. largely viewed as the main protector of the Kurds, anxiety over the U.S. withdrawal is especially palpable here. Of course, Mohammed says, when asked if he believes the Arabs will again try to drive out the Kurds.
Mahmoud is technically part of Nineveh province, which borders the region of Kurdistan, but it is being mostly protected by the Peshmerga, a Kurdish fighting force. And local officials tell us they take their orders from Erbil and not from the government in Baghdad.
At the Mahmoud local Kurdish party headquarters, one of the deputies, Nariman Mahmoud, tells us he's convinced all Baghdad needs is sufficient military might, and it will strike. The system in Baghdad is a dictatorship, he says, with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki at its head. The current Kurd-Arab tensions don't just center around land, but what's underneath it. Billions and billions of barrels of oil. Baghdad and the Kurdistan regional government have yet to agree on who makes final decisions on oil contracts. Right now, the Kurds are signing contracts Baghdad says are illegal. Among many Kurds, including the regional prime minister, concern over what the post-U.S. future will hold.
There is one fundamental challenge for Iraq. Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Would we want to risk another centralized dictatorship with access to oil resources and turn it into weapons and tear into the communities and the peoples of Iraq yet again? Absolutely not.
Jameen Mohammed says he's disappointed the U.S. is withdrawing before the tensions between the Kurds and the rest of Iraq are resolved, fearing the Kurds will be crushed once again. Arwa Damon, CNN, Mahmoud, Iraq.
New questions are being asked about the size of China's nuclear arsenal. A 3-year-long study claims to have uncovered thousands of kilometers of tunnels capable of hiding thousands of nuclear missiles. That is many times more than a current estimate. CNN's Chris Lawrence has more.
While the Chinese were building these tunnels, a Georgetown professor was digging into China.
The students downloaded 200 hours of Chinese video.
Dr. Philip Carber and his team of students have produced the world's largest report on China's tunnels. China admits they were dug by a secretive branch of its military, responsible for deploying ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads.
They had 3,000 miles of these tunnels, 3,000 miles.
Can you put that in any perspective?
Imagine a tunnel 30 feet by 20 feet high running from Nova Scotia to Tijuana.
Carber is a former Pentagon strategist who used to look for weaknesses in the old Soviet Union. Based on the size of these tunnels, he says China could have as many as 3,000 nuclear warheads.
The problem with the study and the way that it comes to this estimate is that the students and their professor make the assumption that because China is working on this system of underground tunnels, this must automatically mean that they have they're working on new nuclear weapons.
Policy analyst Lacey Olson and others working on arms control question the Georgetown team's methods. Olson says suggesting that China has 3,000 weapons is a huge jump from the current estimate of a few hundred warheads and could lead rival Asian nations to start an arms race.
These all lead us to estimates that could potentially impact foreign policy in a very negative way.
But students who slogged through 200 hours of video and translated more than 1 million words disagree.
Seeing hundreds of thousands of Chinese men who work to build these things and hearing their stories and seeing how much effort they put into this is another issue, and it shows how important this is to the Chinese military.
They may provoke an arms race, even unintentionally.
Well, no matter how many nuclear weapons you believe China has, the team's research did yield some fascinating revelations, including how China would use disguised rail cars to transport some of its long-range missiles in secret. Chris Lawrence, CNN, The Pentagon.
And before we go, a reminder of our headlines. The top echelons of Internet service provider NICE today briefed Vice President Jai Sedi on plans to harness the power of the Internet and education to bridge the digital divide. An additional 14 locally trained Gambian doctors have swollen the ranks of medical practitioners educated by the University of the Gambia to 75. An air of anxiety and apprehension is looming over Iraqi Kurdistan as Washington prepares to withdraw thousands of troops from Iraq. and a 3-year-long study on China's nuclear arsenal has uncovered tunnels